Good evening, everyone. This is the Revelist. It is May 15th, 2020. Tonight, I'm going to be finishing up my three-part introduction to my core philosophy. The first part was the three evils. Basically, what is screwing over the world, and really who. Next was the 10 essentials, which is what I firmly believe that every person requires to, have a decent life. And this time will be what I call the 3 Equalizers. Now, this one might be a little different, a little strange, because when you start talking about equalization, anybody in this country, certainly, I'm in America, if it wasn't clear by my accent, you might get them to tilt their head, because when they hear equal, what they hear is communist. I am far from a communist. Couldn't stand to live in a country like that. I will also be getting into some rather different topics with this one, because I think this one for me is the most important. All 3 of my central tenets are certainly as important as the other, but this one really is an answer to the problem. The first equalizer is to circulate all money. Now, when I say all money, what I mean is most money. Money is not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. I would say that that's a little more accurate a term than, it is the root of all evil. It's certainly what can provide a person, happiness or sadness, depending. But how things tend to transpire by those who create the madness in the world, all you have to do is just follow the money and you'll find out who benefits and who doesn't, That being said, when I say circulate all money, what I mean is the extremely rich have their power because the money that they have. When you have so much as they do, money loses all value. Money doesn't have value, and I mentioned that in a previous video. When you have $1 trillion, you don't have $1 trillion. You have what $1 trillion gets a person. You're not really spreading that money. You have, like a neon sign over your head or a flash card, stapled to your shirt that says, I have $1 trillion. It doesn't have any real, meaning besides $1 trillion. And at that point, you can just look at a person, point at them and say, do what I want, I have $1 trillion. Money never did anybody any good staying in some account somewhere, especially these people who have offshore accounts, like in the Cayman Islands. That's pretty a standard phrase, money in the Caymans, whatever. The reason that our country is in debt, and every country is in debt, is because some bank somewhere was able to print more money than was necessary. 95% of our money is in credit. Our money used to be backed by gold, which was a limited asset. It was something that all trade, all goods, and all services had to be regulated to, or relegated to. It had to be kept to the limit of what that money was. And if all the money was circulating, people, for the most part, most people were successful. Now, you have to go into societal, implications of who does and does not want to become a part of a system and to earn the money, enough to circulate it. But that's what capitalism does, is it shows who does and does not want to be a part of a cohesive system. I want to see most money put in the hands of people who will use it, people who will actually do something good with it. And the worst part about money not being backed by something like gold is that it can be inflated, and it can also be deflated. With COVID, everybody staying home, you saw a deflationary system. All the goods and services were still there, but nobody was spending money. Gasoline went down to almost, or certainly under $1 in some places. We haven't seen that since the mid to late 90s. And now with all the money that's being printed for relief, we are seeing what will be an inflationary money supply. Prices will have to go up because the prices dictate, or no, the money dictates the prices. You have to apportion all of that money to all the goods and services which exist. No dollar can be created without it having to almost magnetically be attached to something that exists for why the money exists. Money exists to be used, not to be, hoarded somewhere and used as a badge of honor of some sort, badge of power. It's not, it has never worked. And even worse is that when you inflate the money so much, like Robert Mugabe, ex-president of Zimbabwe, they got so inflated, or the money got so inflated that a $100 trillion note had to be printed. Probably the most of any country to have ever, probably the largest bill any country ever had to print. People had to walk around with carts, like carts from Home Depot, with like just stacks of money on it to go to the store to buy bread and water and whatever. I'd probably not water, but or to the market, not the store. Forget, most countries like that aren't like us. But it gets to a point where what would the third world actually be like if you didn't have, and I'm not talking about millionaires and some degree of billionaires, I'm talking about trillionaires and higher, people who have as much money as, like a handful of people, maybe 2 handfuls of people, and the number shrinks every year of people who have more money than the bottom half of the entire species. Like the last I counted, 6 people had as much money as the poorest half of our species. What fucking sense does that make? What sense does that make? It doesn't. And it never did. I mentioned apportioning all goods or all money to goods and services. That's the second part. All money must be apportioned to what exists. There's no reason why we cannot have a system like that. You know, to offset inflation, I've heard that Germany used to destroy part of the money that was in the money supply. Money has to be backed by something. It has to be able to be regulated by something finite. And, you know, for those in the modern age, you have cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, any other type like that. You know, I believe the singular name, or the name of a singular piece of Bitcoin, is called a Satoshi. Haven't really looked much into it. It's not my thing. But like one Satoshi is like 5,000 American or something like that, probably a little more. And you know, that sounds great. And it's unregulated. It's untraceable. I mean, it has to be tracked, you know, for who owns it. It's like a, you know, a registry of who owns each one, but there's only so much of it. But along the same lines, I can't imagine that if you can have somebody, but I can't imagine that if you can have somebody, you know, hack into your Facebook, you could probably hack into Bitcoin. You know, any crypto likely is capable of being hacked if you're good enough to try. And I mean, somebody can get your banking information and, you know, take you for everything that you're worth. Why couldn't they switch over, you know, ownership of you know, one Bitcoin to, you know, somebody else? It's just physical assets are what we need right now. We need something that is real and not, you know, held up by having, you know, something that I don't know, something that you can't hold. Just what sense does that make? But, you know, or such is the world. I think as I go, my trademark might be a cigar. Anyway, to the third and final of the great equalizers. And this, I think, is the single most important tenet, or probably one of the two most important tenets in my whole, you know, if I had to provide a solution to the world, this is probably it. This is what will do it. And please listen up, because this one is important. We must democratize and make ubiquitous all existing technology on the planet Earth. Since the day man made fire, or discovered fire, he didn't make it. Since the day man discovered fire, man has been a tool-based species. Even before. Whether or not we completely evolved from apes, I have my own, you know, theories about that. But I am firmly rooted in science. I just believe that there are things that science has yet to have a willingness to accept. We have been a tool-based species since the beginning. And we are defined by our ability to manipulate the world, or to manipulate things in the world. We build houses, we build skyscrapers, we do things to keep the lights on. That's what work is. That's how we get money. That's how you earn our living. Anyway, from the beginning, we have done what we had to do to keep ourselves in a modern comfort. Every civilization creating more and more to make life a little easier. People used to have to go out and find their food. People used to have to go out and, scrape to survive. Ever since we had the means to, the first walled civilizations, we've built ourselves higher and higher into the stratosphere. Literally, our technology took us to the moon. I might be a conspiracy theorist, but I believe the moon is real, and I believe we were there. Anyway. Having done so, we made our place as the dominant creature on this planet. Certainly one of the smartest, not the apex predator, but with our technology, we might as well consider ourselves to be. And it is our technology which I believe has the capacity to save us. But not to the tune of needing to live for us. I had a dream once where it was more of that moment before you go to sleep where I saw a guy meditating. He was all in gray. He was like gray. And, well, I don't think the color really matters. But his chakras were lit up. Purple all the way down to orange. I couldn't see the red. But what I saw next to him was this Roomba-looking machine. And it had a red light on the front. And it was right at the area where you'd see his base chakra. And it hit me that we rely on our technology, not so much too much, but we use it as a way to not ground ourselves, but it is our connection to the earth. It has become our connection to the planet. And we are so engaged in all the other ones that we've lost our connection to what is and what matters the most. And that's the paradox, We're so reliant on the things that we have that have nothing to do with us on a real level. But we are, granted this opportunity to be as technologically developed as we currently are. And we could be so much more. There's something called the Kardashev scale, where it's type 1, type 2, type 3. Type 1 is a species that has the ability to harness the energy of its planet, geothermal, electromagnetic, volcanic, Type 2 would be a species that would be capable of harnessing the energy of its own star. There's Tabby's star, there's a few others I can't think of that might have had something called a Dyson sphere, which is a rough assemblage of, it's basically kind of like, it could be even almost a space station, sort of, that would be put to surround a star, and it would absorb the solar energy. And a Type 3 would be capable of harnessing the power of multiple stars. It would be an interstellar civilization. But regardless, our technology has been said to always be 30 to 40 years more advanced. We are on the Kardashev scale about a tight 0.7, 0.8. We are so close. We're so close to becoming at least a solar system based people. You know, get us to Mars. You know, I mean, Elon Musk is doing that, and he's come out and said some pretty rad ass things, right? You know, lately. And I don't agree with his premise that we're living in a simulation, but he certainly said this shit with COVID is getting out of hand, you know, the lockdown and everything. So I'm on the fence with him, but I'm waving more to him actually being one of the good guys. But regardless, imagine if we actually did have a cure for cancer. Imagine if we had something that could get us off of fossil fuels completely. You know, we have evidence to suggest that we've been visited on this planet. And there are so many people who say that we haven't. I don't understand that at all. You know, guys saying that, you know, there's no such thing as UFOs because they're, you know, they lump it in with ghosts. Well, I personally believe in ghosts. I believe in a lot of different things. But even then, what sense does that make? Literally, how do you take something which is based in a physical or based in conceptual physical life, you know, something that would be real, and you lump it in with something that you say because it's denoted as paranormal that it's not possible. Other people saying that, you know, alien life couldn't have come here because the inflation rate of space is, you know, too much for any species to be able to traverse. If it's more advanced than you on scales that you can't even imagine, you can't conceptualize what it can and cannot do regardless of what you yourself say. You can't say what is when you know that you don't know what is out there or not. So we can make assertions, and yeah, I can't prove any of it, but we have centuries of data points, centuries of so-called evidence. And I say so-called because it is yet to be confirmed as having always been evidence. But it is still an evident thing that something is going on. You know, the Germans were said to have been, you know, backwards engineering things way back in World War II. You know, the whole premise of why we were even considered to be visited whatsoever is we put out the calling card with the atomic bomb. I mean, shit, the whole premise of Star Trek was we created a technology that sent out a signature to the nearby universe that basically gave them knowledge that we had more knowledge than we did a century prior. I believe very much that that's happening. I believe that they are already here. I believe that there's already technology on this planet which can revolutionize how we live. Technology that should and could be be what brings in a golden age. Because this species is so long overdue, for one. We've had that talked about for forever. Age of Aquarius, 2020 or 2012. You know, 2012 was not the end of the world. It was the time around which events ripple. It was a doorway into a new age. A true age. Not a New World Order kind of bullshit with people telling us who are richer than God, telling us what we have to fucking do. It's a real it's a real human, a real thing to, cohere properly and actually be one people. Not divided. Keep your borders, but take your barriers down. There's no need for them. You can still be French, you can still be German, you can still be Chinese, you can still be any of it. But there's no need to assume that somebody is wrong because they're different. There's no need to have information be taboo because your religious books say differently. I'm kind of getting off topic with this one, but I can expound upon more of this in other videos, but circulate all money, apportion it to all goods and services, backed by something that cannot allow the money to be inflated, something that has a limit. Remember, life is limit. And democratize all existing technology. That is how we will save ourselves. That is how we will create a real equality on this planet that we have never seen. We are at an age, or at a time for a proper humanistic, as well as divine, truly divine period of time. We are capable of this. There is just so much in our way, and the top wants to bring us all down. Doesn't matter who you are. You need to see what is going on. This is not about fear. This is about making sense of why the world is the way it is, and how it can be what it always should be. If we are so damn important in our own heads that we think of ourselves so highly, we need to start fucking acting like it. Anyway, thank you. We'll talk to you all soon. This has been the Revelist. And please, for the love of God, deviate to Elysium. Find the path to heaven. It's right in front of you. Good night.